car fans? Welcome to the Muscle Car Modeler. My name is Ral, and this week I'm going to feature a build here of a 68 Shelby GT500. Just coming off the 67 model year, and for 68 Ford was taken over, so there was a lot of things that had changed. Production had moved from the LA warehouse that Shelby was using, the airport where he was building the car, and Ford had moved them to Michigan. And even the fiberglass, which the extended use of fiberglass for the 68. Now 65 and 66, they had fiberglass hoods, and that was about it. 66, the scoops on the sides were fiberglass. But other than that, there really wasn't any use of fiberglass. Now 67, the whole nose was fiberglass, the hood was fiberglass, the trunk was fiberglass, and the scoops. And the extensions here where the spoiler was all fiberglass, and there was some serious quality issues. And if you ever seen a 67 that is unrestored, you'll see the twisted and warped fiberglass and the fitting issues that a real unrestored car has. And I had seen one at the Shelby Museum, and it was pretty cool to see the actual build quality of them. But that's what was going on, and Shelby was having some quality issues. And there were some revisions where the tail panel was a little different. The early ones were done differently than the later ones on the 67s. So there was some numerous changes while they were trying to fix some of the production issues. But the quality of the fiberglass wasn't all that great. I won't say it was horrible, but it wasn't all that great. But it was still kind of a new technology back then. Not really wildly used, but getting a little bit more use. Ford had taken over, and they had switched to another company, which I believe was A.O. Smith, and they did all the fiberglass on the 68s. And the 68's quality was a whole lot better as far as what was done to them. But the 68s were a bit more Ford. They did keep the 428 Police Interceptor in them, which was available in 67. But in 67, they got the Shelby intake with the dual quads, and Shelby had done a few things to them on the production car from them. For 68, it stayed a bit more Ford. It was the 428 Police Interceptor, kept the 4-barrel carburetor on the GT500. The GT350, since the 289 was phased out, came with 302s instead of the 289s in the GT350s. And I know for 68, headers were not available. I believe some 67 289s got them, but it was on the option list as far as I can recall. But Shelby would do that. But I believe it was an option. But when Ford was doing it, they just kept the stock manifolds on all of them. So they're a bit more the same as some of the other Mustangs. Although the 428 was not available in the Mustang. Not right away anyway, but we'll get a little bit more into that. But initially, Ford had offered the GT500 and the GT350. Now come April, the 428 Cobra Jet became available. And while that was available in the Mustang GT in very limited quantities, the Shelby, the GT500 KR, which stood for King of the Road, had the 428 Cobra Jet in it. And it had a ram air cleaner and a functional hood. Not all of these hoods were actually functional as far as the ram air went. Pretty attractive car. And it did really well as far as sales were going. A little bit more luxury, a little less race car. But such was the case with the offerings that Shelby was making. But like I said, these were actually produced by Ford and not really by Shelby American. But they were pretty much licensed by Ford or Shelby. So it gets interesting. But they did have the initial run and then the GT500 KR. So they had the GT500, the GT500 KR, and the GT350. But I don't believe the 500 was available after the KR was coming out. And then also for 68, the convertible was now available in the Shelby, where in 67 there was one made and it was a prototype. It really wasn't available. 68 was the first year that Shelby offered the convertible as an open option. You can get it with quite a number of them actually being produced. So pretty cool car, and even then the 500 KR, the GT500 KR, was available in a convertible. Pretty cool cars, pretty nice history, but they were evolving and becoming more of a touring car and not the race car that they once were. Becoming much more of an image car with all of the scoops and spoilers and everything else added to them. So this one, now this is an AMT 68 GT500. This one is pretty much out of the box, but not 100%. I did do some changing and swapping around, and this kit is readily available today. It's been out numerous times, but to understand, it has a lot of flaws and a lot of issues, but that's because it actually dates back to the 67 AMT annual fastback that then was converted into a 68 fastback, and then they did turn it into the 68 Shelby, which I think might have been the first Shelby Mustang in model kit form, as I think all the other ones came later. There might be the one exception where I know there was a 65 AMT kit that you can build as a race car, but I don't think it was truly a Shelby, but it was Shelby-like with a lot of the stuff, but it really wasn't a Shelby Mustang, but it was pretty darn close. Now, I haven't seen one of those. This kit has been issued many times, and the molds are kind of worn out, and it's a tough build, and some things don't fit, some things are just really not all that well done. But keep in mind that this car, it dates back to 68, and I think it's kind of funny. This is me humoring myself. The original issue came with a record, a 45 record. I think it was a 45. Never actually seen one, but it said Sounds of the Cobra, and I guess on the record you can hear the car actually running, and then they had some sounds of it running through the gears and stuff. So pretty cool. But that came in the initial release, and it's a collector's item because of that. And if it's still got the original record, they can get some money for it. But being that they included the record, which on the record cover actually had a 67 on the art on that, the 68 kit had the 68 on the artwork on the outside, which looked really cool. And I wonder how fresh and how nice one of those original bodies looks compared to one of these. And to be honest, this one isn't too bad. I have some of the later ones that have come out, but like I said, this has been released many times. And this is my first build, but not really my first build, because I built this in the 80s, the late 80s, but I rebuilt it. So this one has been somewhat restored, not all that great. So it's been like this for probably 15 to 20 years, probably closer to 20 years. But I did take it apart, repaint it, foil it, because my original build was not foiled. It was silver marker, and the red paint wasn't on there very thick. So you could see through the paint, and it was kind of splotchy in parts. But I did reuse original decals. Those are not Fred Cady decals, just decals I had. But I did foil the emblems. I changed out the wheels. I believe these came in like the 70 Boss 429 kit, and I swapped them out, and got the tires on there, which I think those are Revell tires also. But I'd like to come out with something a little bit better. But I didn't really do too much to this one. The interior is how it pretty much was. It's all brush painted, the interior is, and then silver painted on the inside. You can't really see in there right now. And I went with the underhood here. I went with kind of the optional engine, which this engine is really cool. It's the FE. It's pretty much the it's supposed to be the 428, but it's got the high riser intake, the dual quads, the very nice Cobra air cleaner and Cobra valve covers, which come in the kit. Missing the upper radiator hose, which I may have lost, but I did some updating. Like this is painted black back here. Painted this airbrushed black, flat semi-gloss black, and the firewall are semi-gloss black. But if you notice, the inner fenders are just painted gloss black. That's actually brush painted. That's still the original chassis from my original build, and I believe the entire engine or interior is my original build. But I took it apart and redid a lot of this stuff, and it fits together pretty well. But to get this intake, you're supposed to cut that out, because in kit form this does not fit. I had to do a lot of cutting. You can see, if you see that, I seriously notched that oil pan to get that engine to sit way down there. So I just flat out cut that out and laid that motor down, so the oil pan sits really far to the ground. If you can see that right there, almost touching the ground. So That's not really accurate to the real car. None of the underhood detail is really accurate, but for the longest time, this was your only Shelby Mustang. And matter of fact, I had bought a resin conversion kit to make one of these into a 67, and I messed it all up. But that was 1990 or so, long gone, way before AMT came out with their 67 GT350 kit, which that is a nice kit. It's not perfect, but it's light years ahead of this one. Much easier build and also readily available, but the way they're marketed now, it's kind of hard to tell which one is which. And also, the annual kits have separate lenses that come through this tail panel, where the later kits, which this is, like I said, it was an 80s issue, it's chrome and it's one piece. And you can see that rear valance doesn't fit very well. But whether or not that was my build quality or not, I did cut these and extend the exhaust tips a little bit, but the valance is notched, but really no tips that I remember being in there. But I still enjoyed building it. Like I said, I restored the body and freshened it up a little bit, made it a little bit better. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect. But you know, I want to kind of do a better job with it. And it's one that I wish they would come out with an even better kit. AMT and Revell, nobody's really touched this one. Resin guys have jumped on it. I do have a Mini Exotics convertible that I built. I'll show you that at a later date. And I did some kit bashing and mashing on that to make a better version. Historic Racing Miniatures actually has a GT350 convertible in resin that is very nice. I got one of those also. I have not built that. And Jerry Chevalier, he's got a resin coupe Shelby to do the Green Hornet. I bought that. That one looks nice, and that's actually based on the Revell 68 Fastback and not even on this AMT kit. So I'm looking forward to building that one. And I've got many other Mustangs in resin and Shelbys to build. But I figured this week I would show you this 68 and see what you thought of it, and see what careful work can do, and give you an idea that this can be built. It's not a terrible kit. It's not a great kit. As a Shelby, I really like it, but I think now that the 67 has been out for, I think, 20 years now, maybe less, definitely 15, I really like that kit. And there are times I want to just kit bash that with this one to make an even better 68. But I never did it. This is kind of my original build, but not really, because I did redo the body and freshen it up a little bit. So I hope you like it, and I hope you appreciate it as much as I do, as it's still a fun kit and brings back some memories, but it is a bit of a challenging kit, so you got to test fit some things. So thank you for tuning in and subscribing and watching. I appreciate it, and all your comments and your likes and your subscriptions. And you guys, you have a wonderful Saturday, and I'll see you next weekend.